It's so nice to see you because I think we've all missed people through our lives, and now it's like we said, and then it's really been like 2 years. So nice to be back in person. Anyway, obviously, I'm reading Hillary Schieve, and I've been for the first time. And you know, Reno's gone through a lot in the last 10 years. I was born and raised here, and growing up, I remember people thinking, and I they were talking. So because growing up here, it was just so calm and learning, and we didn't have sort of the recreation. Yes, we have this beautiful backyard playground that I always talk about, because I think Reno has so much to offer, but no one really ever highlighted Reno in the way that I thought we should tell our story. And I thought for so long, Reno had this image that it was very negative, and I'll mention it, 911, Reno 911. And so that's how people always thought of Reno. And so I really wanted to run for office for 2 reasons. I wanted to change the perception nationally and also locally to be proud, because I was born and raised here. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to run for office. And then the second reason was I'm a small business owner. I own a couple of businesses, and I was expanding my business, and I went to the city to move my sign about 2 feet, and they said that would be $5,000. And I was like, that is insane. Who do I talk to? And so, just sort of, frustrated and learning a lot about, and that's one thing is, this is the chamber, you guys, this is what you do. Most of your probably business owners. How many of you are business owners in this room? Right? And that is one thing I would say. Good to know your government. That's why I love Anne pulling people in that on, and Nevada's small, so it's good. So we can really connect. But that's the one good thing about the chamber, not one of the things, but it's a really good thing about the chamber to understand how important your government is, because I didn't understand that. And so, but I think it should work for all. It should be transparent and open so that we have access, especially small business owners. We are the largest job creators in the country. And a lot of times government doesn't understand that. A lot of times government doesn't understand that because entrepreneurs typically are very busy and doing innovative things, and so they don't they don't really worry about the government side unless they're trying to get a government contract. So I was like, we've got to change that. We've got to change the red tape. And who represents businesses? And there wasn't. Are you leaving? No. Okay. We're just calling you out in the room. So if you leave, I will call you out. So no. Right. So, so that was another thing. I wanted to open the doors to City Hall. We were so dominantly gaming. We had people on the council that really represented wards. And I felt like that there wasn't anyone on the council that represented business. And so that was something I became really passionate about whenever I ran for office. And I also believe, don't complain about it. And if you are, then get active about it. Do something about it. And so I actually called a friend of mine who was on the council for 12 years, and I said, what are you guys doing there? This is terrible. The city of Reno, I was complaining, and she's the one that said, then do something about it. And I said, okay, you're right. I'm going to run for office. And then she said, are you out of your mind? And I said, yes, I'm going to. So that, and then my other experience when I opened my business, there were about 4 of us who started the midterm district. And it was a very seedy part of town. And they gave me, it was Jessica Schneider and Tammy from Chocolate Walrus. You guys probably know Tammy. And then Duncan from Chapel. There was 4 of us that said, we're going to start this midtown district. And so they made me go to the council and talk about, we need street lights and crosswalks and businesses, to come down there. And it was really tough because the council basically told me to go screw myself in some ways. They were like, huh, what do you want? No one could really see this vision of these small entrepreneurs that, you know, really wanted to sort of revitalize that part of town. And we really, it was really interesting, because I think you guys should know the story, because I think people think, oh, Midtown, you know, today it's very popular and hip and happening. Wasn't always like that. So we tried to get all the business owners involved in Midtown that were already down there. And none of them, we would, you know, say, hey, we're gonna have a meeting, we're gonna have a Midtown meeting. None of them would show up. It would just be like 4 of us. The city wanted nothing to do with Midtown. Really, honestly, they kind of laughed in our faces. Except for, I will say, Jessica Speraza and Dave Ayazi were very supportive, but we knew we did not have support on the council. You gotta get 4. People forget that. So we knew that we were in trouble. And so what we did is we went to landlords in Midtown and we said, hey, would you like to partner with, you know, small businesses and give these startups a chance, and artists, we really wanted artists and things like that. Well, we knew that they had not received rents in probably years on some of those properties. So that's what we kind of did. We put sort of small businesses and artists together, and that's kind of how midterm evolved. But it was interesting because during the whole time, people that were business owners in the district, like I said, they didn't want anything to do with it. They couldn't kind of understand the concept. And so we kept having these meetings. I remember going to Jessica Schneider, and she was crying, and she said, no one believes in this concept. No one has, they don't care about revitalizing this side of town. I said, listen, Rome wasn't built in a day, they will. So what we did to sort of change the dynamic, and I think the perception, is we put together a Midtown commercial. Did any of you guys see it? I hope not, it was awful. Well, that was fun. Of course, no one saw it. Yeah, it was awful. Okay, well, and this will only take probably 2 minutes. But anyway, it was awful. And after we aired that commercial, we were really strategic about not branding any one particular business. We wanted to show more of a lifestyle that you can come work out, you can come shop, you can come dine, whatever. So we kind of showed sort of this lifestyle. So we had the next Midtown meeting, after we had aired that commercial, we got 34 businesses there. Now, it wasn't because they saw the commercial. What they saw was that we were going to do something, and they wanted to be a part of it. So that's kind of how sort of my life in politics. I mean, honestly, like still today, I'm like, so crazy to get the mayor. My sister's like, I can't believe you're the mayor. You're my sister. You know, like, thanks. And then my mom, after every council meeting, she'll come. She goes, why are you wasting your life? This is my mother. So that's kind of how I started. And then obviously, like, being in politics is really hard. It's challenging. Yes, people are mean. It's not easy, but you do it because you believe in it. So, you know, I'm also an optimist always. That's just sort of how I operate, and I believe we want to be rooting for Reno. I'm proud of a lot of accomplishments we've made. We have a lot of work to do, a lot, but we just got voted the best small city in America. Proud of that. So we have done a lot of things that we said we were going to do, but now we're a medium-sized city, and that comes with a lot of challenges. So my third term, I'm going to focus on things that I think are really important. First for me is mental health and addiction. Every city should be focusing on that. I think it's the pandemic we're not talking about, or an epidemic. And then fire safety. A lot of people don't understand how dangerous our fire system is, and that's something that one of the intention for me for about a decade that happened before in that office. So these are the things that we need to change to keep our city safe. And small business is still so critical because they're the largest job creators in the country. So anyway, okay, I think I'm time.
We still have 5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay,
Yep, 5 minutes still.
Oh, I have 5 more minutes?
Yeah.
Did I call it early?
I think you did. That's all right. Okay, well, anyway, we're good. Okay, so let's take questions. This girl's video, what's your name? Jeanette, nice to meet you. I can't look at her, she's like looking at me, why are you looking at me? Yeah, go ahead, ask a question, anything. Come on, you guys. Okay, I will give a prize to whoever asks the question. Okay, good. I think a little bit of industry.
but we have our small business. We do trash compactation. And so we get shut down all the time, right? When we have franchises, they, you know, go to our customers who are frustrated with them and we're providing solutions and they say, you know, we'll shut down the production. We will not provide solutions if you use their service. And so, I mean, ours is just kind of an environmentally focused, multiple sustainability initiatives. And, you know, essentially taking away business from people.
Have you met with the city? We haven't. Okay, so that's our first.
Yeah.
So again, this is the very reason why the chamber is so important to be a member, right? Because this, like I said, Anne gets it. You definitely need to be the man. Love your business, what you're doing, but we'll tell you. That's another thing I've learned when you get big companies that come in, have contracts and those franchise agreements, they're challenging and tough, really challenging and tough. But I think there's some things you absolutely can do, and then we can also get in touch with waste management, and they know that you're talking to us and that you have a relationship with the city. Right? And that also helps with them use our eyes on you.
Yeah, it's just frustrating when we have like, you know, you have a solution that are environmentally friendly, and then you're like, you know, maybe like, if you were with solar and energy, you're like, well, no, we're gonna raise your rates for you. Like, you need your money.
And unfortunately, you're in a space that can be very, very competitive, and they get very good. But I know this very, very well. I won't get into that, but you need to be push-up. Okay. So we'll look at it.
So I am a Sparks resident, but if I were a Reno resident, I have my vote, you know that.
Thank you.
So, and I'm sure you do like every day of the week, the portable house.
Yeah. I'm so
What, it's not a question, but just, if you would speak to it, where are we going? How are we going to get out of this?
Yeah.
Another thing, I see, you know, I get emails from Zillow showing the price of what my house is allegedly worth, and we can't believe it. You know, how much it's risen. I mean, it's a great thing if you're a property owner, if you're a young person starting out, or somebody who's on fixed income, or elderly, seniors. You know, it's a problem. Where do you think it's going? How are we gonna get-
I'm so glad you asked that. Because it's really interesting. Depends on who you are, right, in the sense of what your needs are. So there are some people right now that, you know, they don't want to talk about development. And unfortunately, the only way that we are going to be able to tackle the crisis is by building. And what we should do is build out, not out, right? We still have a lot of light in the city and places that we can revitalize. And that's smart growth, and you have to do it smart. And there is a balance. But at the same time, what's interesting, and you know, that's going to be the council, that the developers, and the only way to really do it is the private side is the builder. And people don't realize that too. That's not what the government does. A lot of times the government, like, I did something called 1,000 homes in 120 days, because it takes a long time to get a shovel in the ground. And that is really challenging. And it wasn't subsidies, even though the media might tell you that it's not, well, I shouldn't say the media, there are people that are opposed to that. What I had them do is the developers pay those fees on the back end, so they have more money up front to build these projects, right? Which helps them and helps them get shovels in the ground faster. At the same time, then you have people that do not want development at all. And that becomes really challenging because we have two sides of the spectrum. And so then it becomes, well, where can you build? Where can't you build? And then people, you know, are mad when you approve a project. And so it's really, really challenging. So I'm proud the city of Reno has dedicated millions of dollars from our ARPA money to the Reno Housing Authority to get them to do projects, which we've already done, you know, senior projects. We're getting ready to do the Big Scott Manor, 1 and 2 phase. And it's really, really important because also the wages are not keeping up. And so it's making it even more difficult. And by the way, if you're a small business owner like me, that's hard too, because guess what? We're competing with these big companies that are paying much more, and then they're being so competitive, and not a small business. And we're like, oh my gosh, how do we do this? Right? It's tough. It's really, really tough. And then there's also something in housing that we're really not talking about in the different populations. of housing. And that's what's really interesting too, because I think, especially like with mental health, we need wraparound housing, okay? And then you also need, we have very, very little housing for our disabled community, we need disability housing. But there's also one population we don't talk about a lot, probably a lot of these people work for you, are people that show up every single day to work. A lot of them are service industry people, and they would never qualify for a subsidy, but they would also never ever qualify for. And so, and also too, like that's our workforce, the work is so important. So we tried, I tried to get the Sundowner to, sell that property, to revitalize that. I think workforce housing, especially in downtown, is really good. It's a lot of our service providers, things like that. But I also am a big believer, like you have to have it. And I know it's unpopular because people don't want you to do it. I get that. So you have to do it smart and looking like downtown. It's already dense, so let's build up and not out. And then you have services down there, right? Transportation and things like that. So it all has to be done very thoughtful. And it's a balance and it's tough because, like I said, it takes a long time to put a shovel. But the good news is, with this ARPA money, we're gonna have more money than we've ever had, probably ever in Nevada's history. You can correct me on that. For housing projects and things like that. But I also think we need to develop housing for different populations, because there's a lot of them falling through the cracks. So, City of Reno has done a lot. Like I said, I sit on the board of Reno Housing Authority. They're doing a lot. It's a weird kind of time in the economy, so I was kind of like sitting on the sidelines and looking at what's happening to see interest rates go up. So it's a little, everyone's kind of waiting by the sidelines so they can see, but it's probably the number one concern. Go ahead.
So I actually have a couple of questions and then a way to take touch on what we just talked about. So downtown, there's a new experiment going on with the mobility district. And I mean, I'm curious your reaction to how it's going, but it's curious to me as somebody who goes through there every day that we're trying to infill and build up and add a lot of population downtown, but we're constricting traffic flow with mobility districts. So I'm curious your reaction to that comment and just how the project's going.
Wait, say that again. So you're saying, okay, the pilot project, and the question is, what do I think about the traffic going through that?
Well, generically, how are you feeling about the pilot project? But my comment is somebody who commutes through there every day, there's a noticeable difference in traffic flow. It's much more constricted than it used to be. And we're adding more population down there with the infill. So in my estimation, we're going to end up with a real congestion problem with automobiles because so many streets have come down to one lane.
So, they call that a road bank, and there's a couple of reasons why, but, one of the things, micromobility is really important to me, I think, especially like with climate change, I'm a big believer that like we've got to start, I think it's also good for your health, cycling, things like
Unless
that.
they fall off one of the streets.
Right. We need to feel better in the city when it comes to walkability and cycling, things like that. One of the reasons why we did that is because, first of all, I think, especially for the university, that we really, those kids, a lot of them ride their bikes. And so we wanted to find out the data of that. And also there's been a study saying that, if you close off downtown, that will get more people walking and more traffic down there, right? We've got to look at a different way of, traffic. And it all, like, cities need to start figuring this out now and be innovative, whether it's with light rail, those kinds of things. But downtown has always had a lot of congestion, but I think that data is going to be really important about pilot projects. I know a lot of people don't like it, but how do you possibly find a city if you don't do things like that?
No, I agree with you. Fine. And that's why I'm curious with feedback, but I picture reopening and the Kimpton going up and you know, whatever's gonna happen.
Oh, it won't look like that either. It's a.
Yeah, I
don't know
know,
if you've
but
seen what they look like in Europe, like when you do a dedicated bike lane, it's actually really nice and it's really safe. I don't know about you guys, I don't feel safe riding my bicycle, and I think it's a big reason why people don't, right? But I think especially, I always wanted to do something from the university down to Midtown called the straight shot. And literally you could rent bikes from, you know, the university all the way down to Midtown. And I'm trying to get that forever and ever and ever, but it take forever. And so we're now looking at the data, and originally that pilot program was supposed to be on, the center. And what we found is that if we did that, we would have about 90 parking spaces in front of these small businesses that would go away. So, you know, there's a balance, right? You're trying to figure it out, but I also think you need to figure out how to activate Virginia Street, because we've done that with Midtown, but that is going to be a little bit more challenging, and we have got to realize that, you know, creating space like space making down there is important, and getting people out onto the street, like restaurants onto the street, so they can eat outside, and storefronts onto the street. So they want to come down there and enjoy it. Otherwise, you just have these sort of big blocks of concrete casinos. And they haven't figured out how to create an environment down there, like we haven't in town. People want to be outside there, they want to go to those businesses. It's a feeling. Right. So that's kind of why we're doing it.
I'm glad for the experiment, and I was curious about. it,
Yeah.
but I don't want to take up with anyone else.
No.
My other question ties in with the building, and we've got lots of construction going on. And there seems to be a new fad in design of today's high-rise buildings. And it personally, it kind of reminds me of driving behind the old Iron Curtain, where you see plain, tall, uninteresting architecture. And especially to me, driving up Virginia, going through the university, you have this beautiful university on the
Yeah.
right, and you have, you know, East Berlin on the left. I did, first of all, I think you're doing a great job.
Well, you're
I am a Reno
So
resident.
that's how my email says it.
No, but I'm really kind of beside myself, because the architectural style that we put up at the university or down here at Parkland Hall, which I still call Parkland.
I do too, and I will always,
Yeah, real-
and GSR will be the MGM, and
Right.
Renown will always be Washoe.
So, I mean, to me, that architectural style is one, it's cheap for the builders to put it up, because there's no, you know, character or design to it. And two, it's going to be a passing back, but we're going to be stuck with those buildings for generations. And how is the city dealing with approving stuff? And you talk about sidewalk cafes. I mean, all the stuff in the university, you took out every inch of space up to the sidewalk. There isn't a green area, a walking area. There's just, you know, going to be 15 stories of 20 facade. And to me, it's totally counterintuitive what has been approved and built.
Yeah, and I think you're right, like open space is really important, green is really important, trees are really important, Councilman Dora, you know, has a tree initiative, things like that, important, like your tree canopy is important, it's important how you, you know, plan your city, and it can be really challenging, I mean, like, you see sort of these errors, and that it can be interesting one day, you know, we'll say, oh, I can tell you what error this is, like, when you go to LA, like, you see, you know, oh, that's the error, or whatever, like, you can really see, and that's interesting, because I'd love to know, and I've never heard, and I haven't asked the question of, like, when you build something, and do you do it like this because it's cheaper, or like, do you think it looks good? Because, like, I mean, you know, maybe it seems to be very like style wise, like this is what we're, you know, seeing, you know what I mean? But that, and listen, a lot of times they're like, oh, we couldn't make it pencil. I mean, you hear that all the time. And that's where, you know, you're trying to have that balance, because you need the housing. So if I can't help you make it pencil, then how am I gonna get the housing to help, you know, all these kids that are graduating from the university, right? Things like that. So it's always about, because there's a lot of things that I don't love. Like, I don't love to approve a project that I don't think looks good. Matter of fact, like, people use colors all the time, like, ooh, I don't want to say anything. But, you know, I mean, and that's I don't get to do that. Like, I think people, that's the other thing is people don't sort of realize too. The structure, we were talking about this today, the sort of structure of the charter. A lot of people think the mayor is like executive, you know, we have a body, I'm only one vote. I don't have any executive power, I have actually 2 people in the city of Vernon, I can't walk in any department, be like, you're. Which I appreciate the fact, because we have great people that work in the city, but like I have the city manager, and clerk, but there are only 2 people, that we can give any direction to, right? So, and same thing like with council, like I think people think, oh yeah, you know, they just like approve everything under the sun and they're, you know, I hear all the time, you're corrupt, if you're in the pockets of the developer, I mean, that couldn't be further from the truth. You have a lot of hardworking people. I love her, she's raising her hand. A lot of hardworking people that love the city and want to see things good things happen here. Do I always love some of these projects? Absolutely. But sometimes you are really put in a box, whether, you know, you can be sued for, people have private property rights. It's just like me in your business and then, no, you can't do that, right? Like, especially business owners, you know, that's the last thing I want to hear. So it's same thing with that. But I mean, make projects better. I think that's the other, what you do, go in before, sit down with the developer and you say, we do it all the time. I don't love that color. Maybe can we look at this? What about planting more trees? I know you want 500 units. Can we go to 200? A lot of people don't see that. The public doesn't see that that project was a disaster before it came to council. And by the time, there's sometimes we work with developers for a couple of years on projects. And then they come to council and look, okay, we feel like we can get there with this. So it's kind of like you try to work with them. And if you sort of, you know, build a relationship with them, you say, look, nothing for you, and then we sort of get there in certain ways.
Right, and that's time.
Yeah, so that's it. Anyway, well, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. And listen, Anne knows how to reach me. Get a hold of me. If you're a small business that you need something in the city, like if you're having to pay trouble getting business license, whatever it is, Anne knows how to reach me. So yeah, just reach out. And I'm gonna give you my phone number that you can touch with. Yeah. Is our, yes, he is here. Sure. Wow. Thank you.